Hey, this is Aaron from AaronOnAutos.com. Today I have a question from somebody who wants to stay anonymous. They are in the market for a new car and they want to know, how do you describe buyers and their behavior in the automobile industry? In other words, how do customers in this industry perceive, choose, and decide to buy a product? So to answer this, I took two different approaches. There's two different sides to this. One of them is the manufacturers themselves and how they market. The other is the consumers and how buyers actually shop. So in other words, I'm not talking about how buyers shop in logistic terms, like searching on the internet, going to dealerships, that sort of thing. I'm talking about what they actually do when they're shopping, what they're looking for and doing. So there's a lot of data in this industry. Some of it is it's held very close to the vest. Dealerships do a lot of surveys. They don't tend to give that information away. Automakers do a lot of surveys individually. They don't tend to give that away, but there are independent companies that do a lot of surveying and market watching and those sorts of things, and they do tend to publish that information. So most of this will be based on that sort of thing because there really isn't a whole lot of information from individual dealerships, dealership groups, or manufacturers individually. So from the automaker's perspective, we'll start there. There are basically three major things that automakers do, knowing what buyers are probably looking for. The first thing they do is, if you watch commercials, you see their social media posts, that sort of thing, they really push brand. And that is, what they're pushing is the perceived value of their brand, as well as individual vehicles in the brand, but mostly the brand itself. So you'll hear a lot of stuff about a specific vehicle, like a Ram 1500 or a Chevy Tahoe or something. But really what the underlying message is for the brand itself. So they never say they never say the Tahoe. They always say the Chevrolet Tahoe. There's always a brand name associated. The next thing they do is, through that and through other means, they work very hard to build the reputation of that brand. So the second thing is the brand reputation. And that's because buyers purchased based on perceived value and reputation from the brand. So you have vehicles like automakers like Toyota, who has a brand that is very heavily associated with reliability and dependability. You have brands like Subaru, which are very much associated with an outdoor lifestyle, with pet ownership, and with activity. You have brands like Jeep, which are very much rooted in the idea of getting it done, going there, doing it, having good times. You have other brands, pickup trucks and so on, that all have their own motif and their own reputation they're building. So that's a very important thing, because consumer perception is, I'll get to that, but consumers, when we go to buy a car, we perceive the brand first. We have to remember that. Number three is the wow factor. So this is what gets you once you're at the dealership. So the branding has worked. It's got you to show up and actually look at the car in physical live form. Now they want to wow you. They want you to immediately associate the car with different things, usually with value and upscale. So they want you to think that it's very either technologically innovative or upscale in terms of comfort and all the things that are included, and they want you to feel like the vehicle is worth more than what the price tag says. That's almost all about interior. Exterior is important because we do care what cars look like, but the interior is more important because that is your real first impression of the car. When you get in the car, if it looks cheap, you think it's cheap. If it looks really luxurious, you think it's luxurious, whether or not the brand would justify that. So if you're sitting in a Chevy and it feels like a Cadillac, you will like that Chevy. That's how it works. So that is what automakers are doing. Now going to consumers. Consumers shop based on three basic criteria. They have needs. So you need this. You need to be able to seat four. You need to be able to haul a bunch of stuff. You need to be able to tow a trailer. You need to be, whatever your criteria are, you have your need. So that's the first thing you look for. Then you also have wants. That's still part of that first thing, because you might want to be able to seat four, but maybe you'll think, it would be more convenient if I could seat seven. Or you might be like, I don't really need to tow anything but my camper, my tent pop-up, which only weighs about 3,000 pounds, but I might upgrade to an RV in the next couple of years. Maybe I should think about. Or you have dreams of, I'm going to be going to Home Depot every weekend. Hell yeah, I need a bunch of stuff, right? So you think like that. Those are the wants, so those are above the needs. So that's the first thing consumers are shopping for, and that usually narrows their choices. So from that, they narrow choices down. The next is affordability. So you want to think about, what can I afford? Now, most people don't think about, I can afford a $40,000 car, because we don't think that way. We don't think in terms of 5-year and 7-year and 10-year budgets. We think in terms of this month, next month, maybe a whole year. We don't tend to think beyond that. And so automakers know this, and so they, when they price vehicles, they're required to put the full price on the sticker on the window. But dealerships know how to monkey that. So they will talk to you about monthly cost, because they know that for most people that equates to actual cost. For me, for you, for a person making that payment, the monthly cost is most important. That's why we have loans that stretch out 5 and 7 years now, and even beyond at this point. I have seen people getting automotive loans for 8 and even 9 years. So it's a possibility. So we think in monthly. The final thing is the emotional attachment to the vehicle. We get attached to a vehicle based on how we feel about it. So we like the interior. We think it looks really good. We love that color. We like the drive. We like the visceral feeling of being behind the wheel. We like whatever it is. There is some sort of emotional attachment. Now that third point, that emotional attachment, is far more important than people might think. We tend to think in terms of, well, I bought this car because it gets 40 miles to the gallon, or I bought this vehicle because it was cheap. It's only $380 a month for 7 years. Or I bought this car because whatever. But the reality is, you bought the car because somehow it connected with you emotionally. That is a truth. That's almost every buyer out there. There are very few that don't think that way. So here's the thing. Most of the surveys are exit surveys. They're surveys of consumers that have already purchased the car. Well, that isn't the point where the customer is making a decision. That's the point where they just made the decision. Now they're justifying it. So that's where MPG, safety ratings, any other talking point about that car comes to the fore. You have to justify the fact that you just signed up to spend $400, $500, $600 a month for the next 5 years, the next 7 years, however long. So you feel that you need to justify it. You may not realize that's what you're doing, but that is what we do. That is how we think. You buy the pack of M&Ms, you eat it, you justify how eating it, often as we're doing it, knowing that it's not a good thing. We're just ingesting a bunch of sugar, but you do it thinking, well, I need it's a reward, I deserve this, whatever. You come up with a reason. Those justifications are a huge part of the car buying process, and they're the after the fact. So the surveys that matter most when I'm looking for information on this sort of subject are the surveys done during the shopping process. And there are very few companies that do that. One of them happens to be IC Cars, who I write for. I use some of their data for this. There are also a couple of other companies that sell this information that I have had access to their surveys. So again, the three things that consumers want, that consumers do when buying a car. You assess needs, you add on the wants, you look at affordability, and then you have an emotional attachment. Those are four things technically, but I lumped them to three. I considered needs and wants one thing. Now, the automakers know that, and the dealerships know that, so they go with the perceived value of the brand. That's the automaker's job. The automaker creates a value for the brand. Dealerships on a smaller level do the same thing for the dealership itself, but not necessarily for the brand. Then you have the reputation of the brand, which builds into that perceived value. So the brand has a reputation for X, Y, Z. They have a Ram truck, for instance. They're very, very hard about hitting the best-in-class towing, best-in-class. They make a list of all the best-in-class because they are very, very strong about we have the most capability. That is the Ram image. Then you have, so that's one example, and I gave some other ones earlier. Then you have the number three, you have the wow factor of the vehicle. That is what creates that emotional attachment for the customer on the dealer's lot. So the customer is in the car, looking at the car, whatever, they get that emotional attachment. They are far more likely to sign the dotted line and buy that vehicle if they have that emotional attachment. So there you go. That's hopefully this answers the question, but that's the lengthy version of my understanding of the automotive industry in terms of the sellers and the buyers. This mostly applies, by the way, to new cars. When you get into used cars, it becomes a different ballgame. I just want to clarify that because there are different metrics at play in the used car business. So that's it. That's what I got. If you have a question, you want me to answer it, let me know. Hit me up in the comments down there. Find me on aarononautos.com up there. Facebook, Twitter, etc. Just tag me so I see it. You can direct message me, IM me, whatever. Email, anything, any way to get a hold of me, go ahead and do that. So there you go. This has been Aaron, aarononautos.com. Talk to you again soon.
Subscribe.